Welcome back, everyone. In this video, our goal is to demonstrate how we can use the paint tool to paint various texture layers onto our landscape. Also, we're going to explore the difference between our weight blended layers and our non-weight blended layers that we created in the last video when it comes to painting each layer type onto our landscape. You remember when we created those landscape layer info objects, we created all weight blended layers. However, we did create one non-weight blended layer for our grass, so we'll explore that in a little bit. And then lastly, we're going to cover what a subtractive blend is. This checkbox area right over here with our different layers. Now, before we get started here, I just want to make sure we are all on the same page. So make sure you are in your map sculpting level. And then within there, come over to your landscape mode, selecting the paint sub mode under landscape. And this is where you should be able to find all your different paint layers. Now, if you don't see this over here, it could be because you don't have a landscape material applied. For those of you that have created your own landscape material, make sure that this is the one you have slotted. For those of you that took the shortcut material, you can apply that here to your landscape as well. Okay, painting a layer is super simple, but maybe perhaps unbeknownst to you, we did actually apply a coat of paint in the last video when we created our landscape layer info objects. If I hold down the right mouse button and press my Q key on the keyboard, I'm just going to fly on down to the surface of my landscape. We actually do have mud applied everywhere, which is all well and good, albeit you can see a lot of tiling going on. How can we apply another coat of paint out here? Well, it is as simple as selecting one of these different layers, and note about where I am clicking, and then left clicking in your landscape. So I've got some snow selected here. I'm just going to left click in my landscape, and you'll notice that when I do this, suddenly some components are going to be turning all gray, and I'm continuing to hold down the left mouse button, and they turn all gray because, as you saw in the lower right hand corner of my screen, the shaders were compiling. That just means it needed a little bit of time to register what that paint layer was going to look like on our landscape. Okay, left clicking will apply that on there. To erase that particular layer, you can hold down the shift key and left click, and that will wipe it away. Now note here, I do have a tool strength parameter that I can apply. The bigger I make this, the faster it's going to apply it or erase it as I hold down the shift key. And then obviously you've got your same parameters here for brush size to increase the size of this. And then your brush fall off as well. I'm just going to erase this right like that and show some brush fall off. Let's set brush fall off to 0, and you can see now it kind of gradually goes from the outer perimeter to the center circle. I'm just going to erase that guy. Now let's discuss the difference between our weight blended layers and non-weight blended layers. Weight blended layers are the usual kinds of layers that affect each other. So painting a weight blended layer will decrease the weight of all other weight blended layers. For example, painting grass will remove mud, and painting mud will remove grass. So I've currently flown on up to our mud here. I've got my grass layer info selected. This particular one is a weight blended layer, as is this mud layer info. That was a weight blended layer. And I've got my grass here set to a tool strength of 0.1, brush size of 250, brush fall off of 1. And if I just left click and just kind of move it around a little bit, now I'm going to zoom up even closer here. You can see, let me decrease my brush size to 1 so you see my cursor here. You can see that I have removed mud right in the middle here, and it is 100% grass. However, as we move towards the side, it is about 50-50 split here, whereas way out on the peripheral, it is 100% mud. So as I applied grass here, it took away the mud and applied the grass. And as we gradually move towards the fall off, that transition became 50-50, right about there, to 100% mud and 0% grass out here. Okay, Next, I am going to paint some cobblestone out here. Let's find my cobblestone layer. Click on that. We're going to increase our brush size here a little bit. And brush fall off, I'm going to change this to 0. Let's left click. You're going to see it go checkerboard anytime you're applying a new layer that you have not previously applied. And now we've got some cobblestone out there. Your engine's going to stutter a little bit as that happens. Look at that sweet looking cobblestone. Okay, next what we're going to do is we're going to change our grass layer info. We were previously using this one, which was a weight blended layer, to this one, a non-weight blended layer. I can drag and drop this in here like so. And now you can see I've got the no weight blend, and it'll tell me so. And now I'm going to change my brush size down to be a little bit smaller. And I'm going to set my brush fall off to be about 0.5 here. And as I apply this to my cobblestone, let me just left click and reduce the size of my brush so we can see what we got. Now what I did here is I applied this grass, but it did not take away the cobblestone. The cobblestone still exists. With a non-weight blended layer, the layers are independent of each other. So painting a non-weight blended layer such as grass, like we just did, it did not affect the weighting of the other layer. The cobblestone still exists. So this is a good choice to use these non-weight blended layers if you want to have an effect such as this, you know, some grass kind of coexisting with some cobblestone. Now let me go ahead and select my gravel here, which is a weight blended layer. I'm going to increase my brush size here a little bit, kind of fly on up, and as I apply this around, you'll notice that this is on the cobblestone way over here, and I'm going to move some of this onto my non-weight blended grass. What you will see, if I decrease my brush size, is over here on the left, my gravel has essentially stomped out my cobblestone because that is a weight blended layer. However, my gravel has not stomped out my grass because currently I have a non-weight blended layer for my grass. That exists as a separate layer. So that is the difference between weight blended and not weight blended layers. All right, now the next thing I wanted to talk about here is how you can go about clearing or filling an entire layer across your landscape. I've done a quick camera cut here and I've painted different layers in my landscape, and I've got some snow here, so let's start deleting these out one at a time. I'm going to right click on my snow layer and say clear it. Now you're going to see the snow disappear, that whiteness, once my shaders finish recompiling. And this is a handy trick for if you've got that particular layer painted in all parts of your landscape, not just one spot where you can just shift and left click. So snow is now gone. Next, let's go with my grass non-weight blended layer. So let's clear that out. And then I also had some rock and gravel out there as well. So we will see these disappear one at a time as well. So that is gone. Let's go gravel next, right click, clear that out. Things chugging along just fine. And that is gone, and now we've got a little bit of rock layer. I'm gonna right click on that and clear that out. That is gone. Now, I'm gonna change my grass layer here from non-weight blended back to my simple weight blended, and you can see that I've got two different grass layer info objects to choose from. That is because one of these comes from my Infinity Blade Grasslands pack, and this is the one that I created in the last video. So I'm going to select that, and I want to fill up my entire landscape here with the grass, so I can simply right click and choose fill layer. And that is how you can fill an entire landscape with one particular layer type. And now we're going to turn our attention to what this subtractive blend option is. Now this option is only available if you have the Enable Edit Layers system turned on. And you can tell if that is turned on if you have your landscape selected and enable edit layers is checked. Currently, we've been doing all of our painting on a single layer. We can actually paint on multiple layers, and we're going to prove that now by right-clicking on our layer here, creating a new one, and we're going to right-click on this new layer and call it layer underscore rock. So currently, on this layer, we have filled it all with grass. On my layer rock, we're now going to select that, and we're going to right click on our rock down here, and we're going to fill that layer rock with rock. And notice my viewport when I do this. Suddenly, my grass looks a little bit darker because underneath this layer of grass is a layer of rock. And I can prove this by coming under my layer, this one which is filled with grass, and I'm going to change the alpha down to 0, meaning no grass. Show me just my rock layer, which is at 100%. These layers are additive. Now, I am in my layer rock. If I paint some grass, like I'm doing right now, and I take this layer and put it back to an alpha of 1.0, you will see that that grass where I painted shows extra strong because these layers are additive. Grass upon more grass. Now let me just set my base layer here, my layer filled with grass, down to an alpha of 0. Now what I'm going to do is on my rock layer here, I'm going to change the grass that I just painted on to now be subtractive. And you can see how it changed it to a more dull kind of flat look. And now if I change this layer to now have an alpha of 1, we're adding that grass layer back on top. You can see that it is not additive grass upon grass, it is subtractive grass, subtracting from this grass. Now there are ways to kind of mitigate this pixelated look, but that's beyond the scope of this video. All right, well guys, we have just finished up our discussion on the paint tools paint tool rather. That'll do it all for this one. We will see you in the next one.